Welcome to Have I Got News for You? I'm Victoria Coren-Mitchell. In the news this week, as accusations of doping continue to plague the athletics world, there are fears that some athletes may even have resorted to taking animal hormones.
Ready, go!
In a new documentary about the sad fate of former child stars, ITV2 catches up with the son from the Teletubbies. And in Los Angeles, after making a fortune in the advertising world, Churchill the dog enjoys his retirement on Venice Beach. On Ian's team tonight is a comedian and actor who went to the same private school as George Osborne, which, by my reckoning, makes him the fourth poshest person on the show tonight. Please welcome Hal Cruttenden. And with Paul tonight is the traditional right-wing Tory MP who once claimed that guitars should be banned from the Roman Catholic Mass. He really has got a feel for what voters are talking about on the doorstep. Please welcome Jacob Rees-Mogg MP. And we start with what is really the only story in the news this week. Ian and Hal, take a look at this.
Oh, right, yes. Big comic story of the week. That's France, that's the police, that's their rapid reaction force. Oh, there's our rapid reaction force. Yeah, this is Paris and the tragedy there and our attempts afterwards to work out what to do about what's happened. The answer so far being we don't know. How terrified should you be? Should you leave your house at all, ever, again? Or perhaps you should go out just a bit and then run back inside quickly. Yeah. It is... I mean, it does strike me as one of the few things we're still allowed to do is sort of make jokes and laugh. So we might have a go at that.
Yes, what would be... But we have to talk about it, the aftermath of the events in Paris. What has been the British government's immediate response? Who have they hired?
Who have they hired?
They've hired 2,000-something.
SAS.
Spies.
Oh, spies.
Should
we know that?
1,900 extras.
Do you know what that'll cost?
About £2 billion, I think.
£2 billion for the SAS, another £2 billion for cyber security. Where's this money suddenly come from?
Back of the sofa in the Chancellor's office.
It comes from the magnificent management of the economy that the government has done that meets the essential requirements of the safety of the nation.
I knew there'd be some comedy tonight.
Let's talk about the football match. What was remarkable about the football match on Tuesday?
Oh, the English crowd joined with the French supporters in singing the French national anthem, which was a chance to show solidarity, which is not always the mark of the supporter of the professional football game. But,
I love the way it was sort of a little bit... The way the England fans sang that French national anthem, it reminded me of John Redwood at the Welsh Party conference. That sort of... de la patrie. It was wonderful.
Are you suggesting everyone didn't know all the words?
Yes. I don't know. I mean, do you know them?
Well, yeah, obviously.
Not everyone knows the words to the English national anthem. I think the leader of the Labour Party wasn't too clear on them a few weeks ago.
Now, I must...
Oh, God.
And the Marseillaise is quite bloodthirsty, really. I mean, it is quite a sort of full-on defensive number, which is why it was quite moving, really.
But I think the French national anthem is perfect for this, because it is all about we're going to stand up and be... And whereas ours is all about just saving the Queen. We've already got enough security around her. It should really be... Yeah.
Wembley Stadium looked rather magnificent. The tricolour was up there. The tricolour has been put on various things. There are questions about taste. I mean, Facebook brought in a tricolour colour filter that everyone could have on their Facebook page, and Apple did that, and then there's...
Oh, look, there's the bit where the tax should be.
Yeah.
Well, then there's Uber, the curious cab company. They did that.
there seems to be a bit of a pile up north of the river.
One of the most touching corporate tributes, this website, went with the...
Oh, that's proper solidarity.
Is that really true? I'm going to look that up when I get home.
That's the most pathetic excuse.
How did Kay Burley of Sky News capture the national mood?
Oh, yes. This was a picture of a Labrador, I think, a Labrador dog that she said had sadness in his eyes.
Yes, that's what Kay Burley tweeted, and people on Twitter were quick to respond, weren't they, with their own tweets? Here's one. There's another here.
I'm sure I've
one.
met him. No, that is sad.
Yeah.
Anybody else say anything particularly intemperate? that you
Nigel
noticed?
Farage said something stupid, didn't he?
Surely not.
Yes, he did. Was he saying stop all refugees coming or something? That was his...
Rupert Murdoch had something to say about refugees. He tweeted, Obama facing enormous opposition in accepting refugees, maybe make special exception for proven Christians.
Yeah, one of the Republican presidential candidates has said the same.
Is it really embarrassing being right-wing sometimes? When you have...
All I can say to that is Jeremy Corbyn.
Jacob, you mentioned Jeremy Corbyn. How's he been coping with these events?
Well, he is a principled pacifist, and he's expressed those views and said that the police shouldn't necessarily shoot to kill terrorists, and he seems to have very little support from his own MPs in saying this, who have rather revelled in taking a stronger line. I don't agree with him on this, but I rather admire his courage in saying something that is so deeply unpopular, but which he profoundly believes.
That's a very generous thing to say. I think it's a very generous thing to say.
And because I'm so unpleasant, I just point out he retracted it less than a day later.
Yes.
Which is strongly principled in the sense of not being.
There is probably someone going, for God's sake, just say yes. Just say you'll press the button, do your top button up and just do it, you know. But isn't there? They just lie, Jeremy, till we're in power. That's what the Tories do, just lie till we're in power. And that's...
Anyway, you know, if the Labour win the next election, he'll be 70, and if he doesn't want to press the nuclear button, it'll be easy to overpower him.
There was an allegedly stormy meeting of the parliamentary Labour Party. As you say, his MPs don't seem to support him. Many of them attacked him. What was Diane Abbott doing at this meeting?
I think that's private, isn't it?
Tweeting.
No.
Sexting.
She was doing her...
Is that the same thing?
In a way.
In a way.
According to the Mirror, Shadow International Development Secretary Diane Abbott apparently sat writing her Christmas cards during the 70-minute clash. The G20 summit was held in Turkey this week. Yes. What were the US and the major European nations trying to achieve at that summit?
They were trying to get Putin to stop attacking the Free Syrian Army, concentrate on fighting ISIS, so we all have a big coalition. He was sitting there in the corner like a little sort of the one that nobody wants to talk to. They were all going over having little individual meetings with him.
Well, should we have a look at a meeting with Obama and Putin? There they are, in the corner. And if to really know what they were talking about, there is one fellow we could ask. Did you see the chap listening to that conversation?
No.
Let's have a look. So here's a bigger picture, and you can see there in the corner, see Obama and Putin, and just watch this fellow just subtly coming in for a bit of a listen. Yes, this is the aftermath of the terrorist attacks in Paris. One man leading the hunt for the terrorists is Belgium's Interior Security Minister, Jan Jambon, showing defiance to Islamic State, even with his surname. Paul and Jacob, take a look at this.
OK. Yes, House of Parliament. Ah, now, what is this? This looks like parchment.
Act of Parliament. I don't think that's from one of my speeches. Acts of Parliament have been put on vellum forever, and to save £80,000, the kid at the end of it, because I think vellum comes from kids, are going to be saved, and there will be no more vellum, and our laws will now be written on ordinary paper.
So that was just relief from that kid.
Do you know, I don't actually talk to animals, so I don't know what... I'm not Dr. Dolittle. Vellum is very permanent, and laws are very serious and important things, and we ought to have respect for the law, and physically it ought to be impressive. And therefore, to spend a little extra to reinforce that symbolism is, I think, worth doing if we're to maintain respect for the law.
Is the law definitely more impressive if it's written on a goat?
It physically lasts longer.
Which other money-making schemes were criticised this week? It was the tax credit cuts again. Conservative MP Stephen McPartland said a majority of Tory MPs want George Osborne to drop his tax credit cuts. Are you among them, Jacob?
Well, the Chancellor said he's going to come forward with plans at the autumn statement, so I wait and see.
I missed the answer.
I don't know. We still are running a huge budget deficit. Cuts need to be made, and major cuts into the billions of pounds.
This is part of the economic success you were talking about.
Absolutely. The job is not completed. There's still money that needs to be saved.
Yeah, you could raise tax, couldn't you?
We have.
Well, you could raise a bit more.
Interestingly, probably not. The rate of tax as a percentage of GDP that is raised currently is within the bounds of the highest level we've ever raised.
Yeah, but Vodafone and Google and they sort of could pay tax, couldn't they?
OK. Absolutely, and the
so you'd be going after those?
The Chancellor's done this. The
that's good.
He's done exactly this.
Has he? Oh, that's
introduced
good.
plans
Do they know that?
Ensure that they'll find out.
They'll find out, will they?
The Chancellor...
Will we get a letter through, will they?
The Chancellor... Well, the Chancellor...
Dear Facebook, we've just noticed you've been taking the piss. Here's the amount of...
Tax laws are being reformed to ensure that foreign companies make a bigger contribution. That's a perfectly reasonable thing to do.
Who wrote to his local county council to complain about cuts?
David Cameron.
It was David Cameron.
He couldn't understand why these cuts were being made. It's the thing about not being connected with the real world. Do you really understand what I'm talking about, Jacob?
He did do that. David Cameron wrote to Oxfordshire County Council to say he was worried about cuts to frontline services from elderly day centres to libraries to museums. This is in addition to the unwelcome and counterproductive proposals to close children's centres across the county.
He's doing something perfectly reasonable. Let me defend... let me defend the Prime Minister, yeah, perhaps. But what he was doing was saying to the Council that they should make different choices. The idea that there isn't waste in local councils that can be reallocated to the really important services is one that I think is false, and he was encouraging them to do that reallocation.
They did send back quite a long letter saying why they couldn't do that, saying, no, we've cut everything else, now we've got to cut this. And the reason we've got to make these cuts is because Central Office has offloaded most of the cuts onto local government. I'm just paraphrasing.
I think it shows he's got a real division between his being at work and being at home. Because isn't he writing in capacity of being a resident of Oxfordshire? So he's at home, he's walked through the door, and he's sort of put work... He's no longer Prime Minister, he's now a normal citizen getting angry. He probably sits and watches himself on telly going, liar, and things. he's probably got... You know, I think it's nice. He becomes at-home David, doesn't he? He's like...
Let's talk about the Lincoln MP, Cole McCartney.
Cole McCartney?
Why?
I never thought I'd hear that name again. 5 years ago in Cairo, me and him had this secret affair. We kissed each other on the balcony. God, no, I better not say any of this. I have no idea who he is.
He may cost us £15,000. Do you know why?
Because I've just libelled him. I didn't kiss him on the balcony.
No.
15,000, that's not going to cover the lawyer reading the letter.
I bow to your superior experience.
No, it's to do with the way his name is written. He wants the parliamentary records changed because they print his name with a small c, like this. And he thinks it should be written with a sort of floaty C, like this. And so far, it's cost several £100s to change the parliamentary records, but changing it on Hansard and the House of Commons website could cost £10,000 to £15,000.
That's because it's written on vellum, and you can't easily rub it out.
But that's absolutely ridiculous. Not on his wanting his name spelt properly, most people do, but that it should cost that sort of money to make a tiny little change on a computer system where even I don't hold myself up as a great expert in this field, knows that you can change fonts on machines quite easily. Most of us want our name spelt correctly, don't we? It's a reasonable ambition in life.
May I just say...
Achievable for most of us.
I find you extremely attractive. I just thought I'd mention it.
My wife is in the audience.
I'm so sorry, Mrs.
Would you like the rest of us to discreetly mention it?
I don't intend to do anything about it. I just thought I'd mention it along the way. Let's talk about Sir John Chilcot.
Yeah, why not? That'll kill the mood.
We're still waiting for...
You're going to tell me you find him very attractive?
You like a man who takes his time?
Last week, Sir John was pictured enjoying himself at a bus stop. Well, the Sun has been following him and taking photos. They found him at his country home in Devon at 4 p.m. on a Friday. How long does it take to make the 200-mile trip from Westminster to Devon?
5 hours.
Quite a long time, because the roads aren't very good.
He'd have needed to leave at midday.
Oh, and he could have spent all that time just writing out, Blair is guilty.
This is the news that Parliament is about to be dragged kicking and screaming into the 19th century by abandoning vellum in favour of this new stuff called paper. Meanwhile, Tory MP Carl McCartney has asked for his name to be typed differently on parliamentary records in a move that could cost the taxpayer £15,000. He's said to be unhappy that his name is spelt with a lowercase c. Don't worry, Mr McCartney, I'm sure we'll all use a big C from now on. And so to round two, the one-armed bandit of news. Fingers on buzzers teams. Here's the first one.
Blimey.
Ian and Hal.
I think this is a man who went on holiday and filmed his whole holiday with the camera around the wrong way, filming him. So that was his whole holiday, was just a picture of his face going, oh, that's good.
That is absolutely right. Yes, he borrowed his son's mini video camera to document the trip of a lifetime.
Oh.
To Las Vegas. The camera pointing the wrong way for the entire trip. Shall we have a look at his highlights?
Yes.
Yeah.
Look at that. That's the view looking down. See? Woo! That's where we're going for breakfast.
He did, ironically, attempt to take a selfie on his trip. Shall we have a look? That's his selfie. Fingers on buzzers teams. Here's the next one. Paul and Jacob.
Well, I think this is to do with athletics and that they're all taking drugs.
Not everybody is taking
well,
drugs.
the English don't.
No,
And nor do the... nor do the Scots, the Welsh or the Northern Irish.
That's right.
But everyone else seems to. And there's been a great row about this.
Is one country in particular?
Russia.
Yeah. Russia has been suspended from competing in international athletics. Why?
Because they're all taking drugs and have done. and have done for years, and they've fiddled the testing regime.
The key with this one, I think, is that they've said that Russia was complicit in the doping by individual athletes.
Do you know what I like the fact it's the World Anti-Doping Agency, or WADA, and it's just that image of the Russians going, oh, yeah, WADA, 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 you know?
President of the International Association of Athletics Federations, Sebastian Coe, is he the right person to be leading the clean-up?
A lot of people think not.
Some of his other interests have been called into question. What are they?
He works for Nike.
Well, it's various things. Sebastian Coe is the executive chairman of sports marketing firm CSM, which represents Gazprom, one of the sponsors of the Russian Olympic team. He is also a special advisor at Nike. He has his own parking space there. And he's paid £90,000 to advise the firm. Coincidentally, Nike sponsors the Russian track and field athletes.
Oh. It's all quite compromising, isn't it? I just... It's a point of view. It's not a fact.
No.
But the lawyers are there again, 15 grand.
Yeah.
Lord Coe was also once chairman of FIFA's Ethics Committee.
Oh, well, there we
I didn't know
are.
they had one.
I do want to talk about a football match.
Yes.
How did one footballer protest at a linesman this week? An unusual method of protest.
Did he... he was sent off and he went home to the linesman's house, disguised himself as the linesman's wife, had a very fruity Saturday night, and then in the morning revealed who he was.
You're not as far as you might think. This was a derby match between two Spanish lower league sides,
Yes.
in which a disgruntled player who was watching from the stands became so incensed at what he regarded as a wrong decision in the 80th minute that he stormed onto the pitch, approached the assistant referee, pulled his trousers down and tried to hit the linesman with his penis.
Wow.
Is there no footage?
This is the news from the world of athletics, that Russia has been taking the piss and systematically destroying it. The Times listed all the finishers in the women's 1500 metres final at the London Olympics, which featured 4 drug cheats, including Yekaterina Kostetskaya, who came 9th. The Russians have launched an urgent inquiry into how someone who took that many drugs could be that shit. Time now for the odd one out round. It's just one between you this week. Your 4 are a Google car, the blink of an eye, a Japanese runner, and Bertie the tortoise.
Well, it must be about speed, mustn't it? Because we've got a sort of tortoise there. The Google car...
Our car was stopped for going too slowly by
Going
the
too
California
slowly?
police.
Right, OK. A Japanese runner, he seems to be of a certain... He seems to be quite an old-looking man, so I should imagine he doesn't move that quickly these days. So he's probably a marathon runner, but probably does it between sort of February and October. The tortoise is the odd one out, because that's the obvious one that goes slowly, and so it must be the odd one out.
The tortoise is the odd one out?
Yes.
Because they are all too slow, apart from the tortoise, which recently broke the tortoise world speed record.
Was it falling off a mountain?
We need to have a look at him, sure.
Yeah, go on, let's have a look at
Let's see.
He's on something.
Yeah.
it. Looks like tarmac.
Thank God the tyres are there.
Yes, exactly. He might sort of hit them at high speed and then burst into flames.
Scientists have discovered that a blink of an eye is slower than a drop of a hat. They've been studying speed cliches.
Right.
Yes, they measured the drop of a hat at 5.7 metres per second.
Yes.
And a blink of an eye was slower than that. 6.94 metres per second was a ferret up a trouser leg.
What about shit off a shovel?
And what about the Japanese gentleman?
Yeah, what about the Japanese gentleman?
He's 105.
105, oh, I didn't know.
105-year-old Hidekichi Miyazaki became
Yeah.
the world's oldest competitive sprinter. He completed the 100 metres in 42.22 seconds. Should we have a look at him in action?
Well, he's doing well, isn't he?
I think he's doing very well.
Yeah.
Yeah. He'll be dating Jerry Hall in no time.
Why was Mr Miyazaki disappointed after the race?
He failed to beat his own record.
Yes, he had hoped to go faster. He said, "I shed tears of disappointment because I was not in good condition. I'm not satisfied with today's time."
No.
What does he put his slow time down to?
In fact, he's 105.
He was the only non-Russian in the race.
Mr Miyazaki told reporters he often loses valuable seconds because he can't hear the starter's gun go off. Yes, 105-year-old Hidekichi Miyazaki was disappointed with his 100 metres time of 42.22 seconds. At the end of the race, Mr Miyazaki gave a urine sample. No one asked him to, but it had been 42 seconds since his last one. Time now for the Missing Words round, which this week features as its guest publication Chess Moves, the newsletter of the English Chess Federation. The editor always keeps his door firmly shut because he hates drafts. Oh,
don't know.
damn
It could be true.
And we start with unbribable crocodiles what?
To run FIFA.
Snap election. No, if you're going to start groaning, you have to come out and do your own joke. We'll say groan at
The answer is unbribable crocodiles to guard death row inmates. Indonesia's anti-drugs agency is planning to build a prison on an island guarded by crocodiles to hold death row convicts because the animals cannot be bribed. Some people are on death row due to false allegations, for which you have to blame the alligator. Next, my most memorable chess moment was playing one Englishman who what during the game?
you. Drank a cocktail. Ruled India. Reflected about the old times between the war. When myself and Bunty were on the beach. Do you think the sea will ever change, darling? Will it always be wave after wave?
My most memorable chess moment was playing one Englishman who would always make cat-like noises during the game.
Oh!
Next, Tesco advertises for what?
Is this accountant?
It's something festive.
Fatty Christmas boy. Not Fatty Christmas
I think
boy?
I know what it is.
Jacob knows what it is.
I think I know what it is. I think it's for people to untangle the wires of your Christmas lights.
It is.
But I...
What is
Why?
a fatty Christmas boy? You're right. It is for professional Christmas lights untangler. And finally, man creates what because he found what embarrassing?
Adam created clothes because he found nakedness embarrassing, but that's not exactly a news story, is
No.
it?
Didn't happen this week.
No, it is more topical than that. Man creates a special arm because he found selfie sticks embarrassing. Here he is.
His other arm has to be the same length. That's to stop him looking stupid.
The good news is he doesn't have to take selfies anymore because he's now in a relationship with Mr. Tickle. So, the final scores are Ian and Hal with 4 points, Paul and Jacob with 7. And I leave you with news that after spending decades watching her husband fail to win promotion at work, one impatient wife decides to take matters into her own hands. At a meeting of European leaders, one delegate tries to raise morale by burping the alphabet. And in Harley Street, there are fears that things may not quite have gone to plan with Alan Yentob's cosmetic surgery. Good night.